Welcome, New Bedford residents. We're here to continue our discussion with some of the candidates running in the October 1st election. Here with at-large candidate Leo Choquette. So we're here to discuss why he should be elected to office. So welcome to the studio, Leo.
Hey, Mike. Thank you for having me in.
So the first question I ask all of them is why you're running for office.
Well, I'm running for office because it's a natural application of the talents I think that I have. My current position, I work with city family businesses. I work with small business owners, middle class and lower middle class families, and I help them to design plans so that they minimize their tax exposure. I also help them save money for retirement and for other goals. And most importantly, I make sure that they never run out of money once they've entered the retirement years. So being able to work with constituents and clients is really the same thing, and helping the city to minimize tax exposure and clients to minimize tax exposure. These are similar goals, and I like to bring what I already have in my current profession to the city.
Well, let's talk about that. So what is your job currently?
So I'm an investment executive for Securing Advisors of New England.
And are you families? You have married with kids or a girlfriend? Or?
Well, I have a wife, Bethany. I'm 44 years old. I live at 21 Agnes Street in New Bedford, and currently no children yet, but we're working on it.
How long have you lived in New Bedford?
I lived in New Bedford parts of 22 years. I grew up at Harborview Towers on 60 South 2nd Street, and I can even remember it was apartment 6J and 2C, although I can't remember to bring bread home at night for my wife when she asks. And so I lived there until about 1986-ish. And then we moved to Dartmouth. I went through the Dartmouth school systems. And then I came back after I graduated law school.
All right, so we'll move on to the political part of the interview. You're running for at-large city council. What do you define as the role of the city council?
So city council is definitely the legislative wing of the municipal government. It has different functions, but the main functions are to pass and write ordinances, review them, pass them into law, approve mayoral appointments, also appropriations, other things including, giving out awards or citations to businesses and families, those feel-good things. Of course, constituent services is a huge part, and then finally, the budget. Amending the budget and passing the budget.
Okay, so let's say you make it through October 1st, through November, you get elected. What's your first priority in 2020?
First priority in 2020, I want to begin trying to figure out ways to lower the property tax. I know there's no one magic panacea. There's no one answer that's going to solve everything. And I realize that some councilors believe that it's not possible. And when they say, you can't do this, I say, well, what is can't? In the 1960s, we put a man on the moon with technology 1/10 the power of this phone. If we can do something like that, there's nothing we cannot accomplish. We just need to find the right people with the right ideas and to apply the solutions. During the race, I've seen that there's probably three groups of people, candidates and incumbents included. You have folks that kind of don't see the issues in this city for what they are. They have their own agenda, kind of. Then you have the folks that they see the issue, they identify it, but they have no real solutions. And then the last group of people who are running, who I'd like to think I'm one of them, is I know what the issues in the city are, as many of you all do, but I also want to think that I have some creative ideas to try to bring solutions to these problems.
Okay, so we'll move on. Public safety. Every time I do a poll on New Bedford Guide, public safety is always number one, I would say for 6 years now. Do you have a public safety plan for the city of New Bedford?
I have some ideas. I don't have a full plan, but in any type of city government, I believe the first thing that has to be done is we need to strengthen the spear of the municipal workers. Those would be the police and fire. I'm a proponent of giving the police what they need and the fire department what they need to do their jobs. These are men and women who chase criminals. These are men and women who run the opposite way into a burning building when I'm running out. So they all deserve, in my opinion, to have everything they need, you know, for training, for tools, for equipment. Unfortunately, we're still 13 months behind in renegotiating police department contracts, from what I've been told. I think that that's something that we definitely need to address soon. New Bedford, to me, is a wonderful place. But again, like the statement I made earlier, I feel like it's like a construction company with a lot of shiny new tools, but we're not paying all our workers fully, if you follow with that. So I definitely think strengthening the police and fire will definitely raise morale. And, you know, that's how you start with the crime. The other part is, you know, it's been said you can't legislate morals. That's an old expression. But we can work with the school systems to teach kids right from wrong.
Okay, so if you just joined, we're with at-large candidate Leo Choquette. If you have a question for Leo, post in the comments, and I'll take those and throw them out to Leo. So next question, economic development. It's big for, obviously, affects everything in the city. New Bedford's per capita income is half of the state average. It's been like that, it seems, forever. We have the #1 fishing port in America, but we don't have a different income level than, say, Fall River. I don't know the reason behind that, but is there a way to bring in higher paid jobs in the city?
It's an excellent question. Now, first of all, I want to open that by saying I would like to know how we have the #1 fishing port in America and we're not getting a large amount of revenue from it. I would be willing to have an audit done of the downtown, of the fishing port, or the companies on the pier. We need to know where some of this money is going. How can we have that gem of a commercial fishing port and then not have the ability to have correct property taxes under, say, 14% like other municipalities? Fall River, for instance, their property tax is 14 point something. They don't have the fishing port that we do. They don't have a lot of the things that we do. And hell, I don't want to be Fall River. I know none of you do. But the question is, as bad as we laugh and snicker about what's going on over there, why are we paying more? And we have similar city services as they do. It's not that they don't have, they don't have trash pickup, or they don't have whatever. We have a fire department, so do they. So how do we bring jobs in here? I have several ideas. Okay. I've always been under the assumption that biomanufacturing is a huge, huge plus for this city. Now, Fall River started with a biotech converter and all that, and we missed out on that a couple years back. But what I would say to that is it's not a complete waste, because we're not an area where you can get a lot of PhD scientists anyway. Okay, jobs that we need are simple labor jobs, unskilled labor. Make glass tubes, make pipettes, make lab equipment. If we had a way to centralize those operations, we could legitimately cut costs compared to the Chinese and Bangladesh and overseas who supply Route 128 and the biotech sector. We live 60 miles away. We have existing freight lines. We have an unskilled labor force. We have a deep water fishing port. We could offload raw materials directly in there and cut transportation costs, because we're 60 miles away rather than 7,500. So this is something that I'm really high on, and I've talked to Derek Santos in Economic Development, and they have some smaller companies in the industrial park now doing that, but I'm thinking on a larger scale.
Let's move to property taxes, since that seems to be one of your biggest issues. City Council lowered the rate last year, but sometimes that's like a trick. You lower the rate, but the property values go up.
Exactly.
So they paid an average resident in New Bedford, property owner, paid $220 higher than the year before. I think it's over $3,000 a year now for the average homeowner. So you say it's not impossible. So how would you go about lowering the property taxes?
Well, it's the whole adage of you take from Peter to give to Paul. You gotta find some other place to get the money from. So obviously you have to build the tax base. You need more money coming in than is going out. Basic budgetary math, right? Now, there are many ways that projects can be funded that don't necessarily require raising property taxes. we have a great bond rating. I'm sure you know, AA bond rating. And by the way, we have a great CFO. Ari Sky's done a great job in this regard. We need to have the ability to bond out more debt into the secondary marketplace where it can be purchased. And again, when you have a great bond rating, you know, investors are willing to pay to take that debt on because there's a better interest rate tied to it. So will bonds completely replace property taxes? Absolutely not. But it may provide enough of an alternative revenue source where we can start to lower the taxes to some degree.
So what about, so it sounds like you're saying more of a debt than, say, cut the budget spending or increase revenue? Is that your priority, is the bonding?
That would be part of it. I definitely want to explore all options. And I have a good solid background in municipal securities from my profession also. So I'm a little biased towards looking at the, you know, doing general obligation bonds. But there are many ways that we can lower these taxes, and that's just one of them. Now, obviously there are specific expenses we cannot touch. And the two largest debits to the non-discretionary funding would be the pensions, of course, and health insurance. That is not something we can control at this point. So we do have limits too. I mean, so we are tied up to some degree. But in order for us to persevere through this, it's going to take a lot of creative thinking and a lot of bright, intelligent people working together.
So Meg Feeney asks, along with those creative ideas you mentioned, Leo, can you please talk about a way to promote jobs in the city? We just heard from Ian talking about economic development to offset costs on hold the line on spending.
So yeah, I'm all for, and I would say exploit is a negative word, but in this regard, exploiting it is okay. Yeah, taking advantage of the cannabis industry, offshore wind, renewable energies, biomanufacturing. These are all potential ways that we can get other companies in here to kind of change the dynamic of New Bedford's economic footprint. I mean, look, in the 1800s, we all know it was whaling. In the 1900s, it was textiles. And we really haven't had something since the fall of the textile industry to kind of hang our hat on and be identified as. So New Bedford needs to be a green energy center. It needs to be taking advantage of its coastline. It needs to be taking advantage of its location to Boston and to the biotech industries. Boston is the second largest biotech nexus in America. We're only 60 miles away. We need to plug into that in an ancillary way.
Okay, you brought it up, so we'll go to that question. Marijuana. New Bedford seems to be the last city in the South Coast, really south of Boston, to get, and we don't have it yet. We have 3 community host agreements. Last night they just voted to approve the mayor's host city agreements with 3 marijuana retail. So and I talked to the mayor. He said maybe next year we'll get one. Are you happy with the speed of the marijuana coming to Bedford? I guess first, are you a proponent of recreational marijuana?
I am a proponent of recreational marijuana as far as it's used to cure medical ailments or to treat medical ailments, if that's what you mean by that.
So the medical marijuana is legal and now recreational. Are you a proponent of that? Would you have voted yes on legalizing marijuana in Massachusetts?
Yes, I would have.
Okay, so you're for recreational marijuana, and now New Bedford, again, seems to be behind the curve on this. Now, it might not be a negative thing because Fall River seems to be having their issues by going too fast. So do you think we've too fast, too slow, right in the right spot?
I think initially it happened very slowly. I know there were a lot of people that were not happy that the mayor kind of, took his time with this, even though there was a vote for the city wanted it, I believe that even though we were slow at first, we got to kind of slow down now. We got to slow down a little. With Fall River as a perfect example, we got to make sure the process is clear and clean, and that laws aren't broken, and that people aren't facing potential either lawsuits or any kind of negative repercussions from this. We don't want to scare the industry away, is my point, by moving too quick all of a sudden. We really need to lock into this and as a moneymaker. And again, I hate to sound like I'm all about money, but we need revenue in this city, and we need to find ways to do it where we can lower the property tax and pay our police, fire, and other city workers.
A discussion topic that comes up a lot while I do these interviews is rent controls. Would you support rent controls in New Bedford?
I'm not a big fan of rent control, only because it's supposed to be a free market capitalist society, right? If you lock rent, you don't know how the economy is going to change 10 years from now, 15 years from now. If you're rent control, it's going to slow down growth of real estate overall. It's going to definitely hamper the ability of the sales market for realtors. Now, you may say to yourself, all right, well, Leo, then, okay, well, where are these people supposed to live? They don't have enough money to live in those properties. Well, there is nothing wrong with us having increased public housing for folks as an alternative. I mean, we need to take care of our people, but we need to make sure that the public housing system, is a positive, not a just negative place to go once we've exhausted, the whole landlord dynamic. Because landlords are people too. I know they get a bad rep from time to time, but they're in the business of giving people places to live, and they do provide money to the economy in this city.
So we'll jump to that then. Public housing. There's thousands of families on a waiting list for New Bedford public housing. Would you support status quo, increasing, working with the state legislators to increase the, amount, or decreasing public housing? What was your philosophy of view?
So as someone who lived in public housing growing up as a kid, in the very beginning, I know what it feels like to live in public housing, and there's a stigma to it. But we need to improve the quality of what we offer folks in this city, and we need to give them more places and more options to live. I believe that if people have a comfortable home to live in, not a single-family home, just a comfortable place to live, that they're going to be more productive, they're going to have better jobs, they're going to be positive contributors to society. They are people too. They have every right to want to have a good place to live. So if they can't afford it because we can't allow rent control in a private landlord scenario, we really do need to have more federal subsidized housing.
So we'll move on to, obviously a big thing in Massachusetts is addiction. Overdose deaths have taken over car accidents and guns, combined. Philosophy is important to understand a candidate. Do you believe that addiction is a choice or disease?
I definitely believe addiction is a disease. I'm going to explain to you why. If addiction was a choice, then once you were tired of being addicted, you would choose to not be addicted anymore. And that is not how that works. I have family experience. I have a beloved first cousin who owned $1 million masonry business. He lost everything. He got addicted to pain pills. He ran out of scripts and then started going around and buying heroin. He lost his family, his home, everything. He didn't have a choice to not be an addict. Once you're an addict, you're always an addict, unfortunately. But you have to learn to live with it.
So is the city of New Bedford doing enough for resources to help people that are addicted?
I believe we can do more. I believe there's actually the breakdown in all of this. And again, we have a great opioid task force, and I'm very glad to hear that they received quite a sizable grant, like $1.2 million. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely good news. But having talked to people who are in the industry, they tell me that the biggest problem is that when people OD, and they're sent to the emergency room or given Narcan, sometimes they don't follow the next step, which is to go in treatment. And then sometimes the people who go into treatment, they don't follow the next step, which is to go into a halfway house. And then from the halfway house to the sober house. Now, once you go through that long process, your chances of coming out and again, beating addiction and being able to reintegrate back into society are huge. But for some reason, we're not keeping people in the flow.
Yeah, I think Governor Baker wanted to hold, if you actually overdosed, that he wanted to actually hold you for 24 to 48 hours. The state legislators went against that. Basically, now when you overdose, you fill out a questionnaire and you get to go on your way. In New Bedford, I've covered stories where someone's overdosed 2 or 3 times in a 24-hour period. So they overdose, EMTs, police, everyone works their butt off to get them to the emergency room after Narcan them. They're released, they go back home, they overdose 12 hours later. But there is no mandate. But there is a great program in the city. You talked about the task force. There are some volunteers that will go to someone's house after they overdose and try to give them the resources, like you said, get them into a treatment program. But everything is, nothing's mandated. Would you support maybe talking to the legislators to get mandation? Or?
I would absolutely talk to them about that. I believe that from a medical standpoint, when somebody's suffering, and believe me, they are suffering, it is not a choice. When those people are suffering from opiate addiction, they are crying out deep down. So even though they don't want to go to a treatment place, deep down they know they really need to get there. And I think that we need some kind of mandatory, place where we, after a Narcan or administration or for an overdose, we really need to get these folks the help that they deserve. That's my opinion. So yes, I would most certainly talk to state legislators and get them to try to agree with Governor Baker on that.
Big issue with the city council, usually on social media, but I think some people, question the residency waivers. So the city council, mayor puts up job applicants come in, but they live outside the city, so he puts up the waivers. City council seems to approve them all. Do you think there can be improvement on there, or are they people that you would have disproved, or what's your view overall on the waivers?
Great question, Mike. So I can tell you this. There are talented people in this city, okay? We have a lot of talent in this city. However, some positions come up, and the person with the best qualifications is somebody from, say, Acushnet or Fairhaven or Dartmouth. Now, we want to take New Bedford forward, and in order to make New Bedford the place we want it to be, we have to hire the best people we can find. However, that being said, we need to make sure that there is some sort of handicap score that will allow someone with near similar qualifications who lives in this city to be able to compete in that process against someone from another city.
Do you think the city does enough outreach to get New Bedford residents to apply for these jobs?
I can't answer that fully, but I think that we could probably improve that. I think we could improve that. There's always room to improve that, and that's something if I am elected, I do want to be a part of increased, discovery process in that vetting process.
Okay, final few questions. Always, fun discussion on social media. Potholes. Anytime the city gets any kind of money, doesn't matter if it's like a cove walk or money for the zoo, it always is, why isn't this going to the potholes? Now, I talked to the mayor's office. They, on average, I think it's like 10,000 potholes filled a month. I don't know if those are extremely temporarily, but what do you think? Is there room to improve how we fill the potholes and keep them filled?
There is room to improve. The potholes, I was told by my good friend, former councilor Henry Bousquet, that it cost almost $1 million to repave 1 mile of roads. And he's absolutely correct. Now, just surgically filling in potholes is not going to cost as much. But there is a possibility, and I've read about this, some cities are using, instead of pure asphalt to put potholes, to close up the potholes, some kind of alternative rubberized organic compound that is like 3 times cheaper from a material standpoint. So if we could institute using these kind of alternative materials to fill the potholes, then maybe we could save some money there and get them done quicker.
Okay, so we'll go to the final question. Panhandling. Do you believe it's a freedom of speech issue, or the city has done is put signs above their heads that says "Don't give," basically, and the mayor has done the spiked cobblestones. Is there something different you would have done or would do in 2020?
All right. So being a lawyer, I know that the ACLU is going to come after us for infringement of First Amendment rights for some of these people, and that is a logical argument. However, I don't believe it holds full water, because there are situations where other municipalities have asked them to get licenses to do this. So every day, one of these individuals has to go to City Hall and pay, I don't know, $5, $10 daily for a license. I think we could do that, and that may deter some of the people who are just doing it for quick drug money. But, I mean, panhandlers, the mayor's had some good ideas with flipping flagstones up and down, and the signs. I think the signs help too, you know, support this gentleman by giving him food or giving him clothing. Don't give him his next overdose shot. You know, I've seen some stuff like that. It's a multivariate problem, but I believe that if we use a lot of these different resources, and again, the ACLU sued Fall River. Fall River tried to just round people up who were panhandling. So we have to be cautious of that. We don't need lawsuits.
So we'll close with this. Where can people find you on the internet, website, social media?
Great, thank you. Yeah, so my campaign, we're on Facebook. There'll be links on Facebook there for Instagram and Twitter. I'm going to be doing in the following month, I'm going to be having a fundraiser on October 7th. It's going to be, you know, open to the public, obviously. And the information's online. I know I can't use your thing here to institute my, and sell my own fundraiser here, but it'll be online on Facebook under Leo Choquette for City Councilor at Large.
Okay. So thanks for tuning in. We're going to provide more interviews later today, and tomorrow's the last day. We're going to allow any of the candidates to come in. We still have a few that are going to try to get in here. October 1st is Election Day. Show up. Doesn't matter who you vote for. Show up. Hopefully get educated, know who you're voting for. And then on November 5th is the final election, who runs the city in 2020 and beyond. So thanks for coming in, Leo.
Thank you, sir.